Hi there. Hi, friend. Welcome to Homekeepers. How are you today? Hope it's a good day so far. And you are so welcome. Come right on into my parlor here. And hopefully, be nice if we could sit down together and get acquainted. But this is the way it'll have to work for now. But this is a program that is very concerned about the American home. And we try to deal with the issues that face that. So if you're brand new, that's what we're all about. You're welcome. And you regular ones, you know that. And you're welcome as well. And of course, one of the most important things in the family today would be the school system. There are a lot of, last I heard was about 2 million children in the United States being homeschooled, which is really very ideal for most of them. And then we have our Christian schools and private schools. But the public school system, of course, educates the most children in the United States. If you saw the program yesterday, you saw my guest, Jeffrey Wick, who has written a book on the subject. He is the principal of a public school and has served as teacher, assistant principal, and other positions within the public school system. So he really knows what he's talking about. And that's why I wanted to hold him over for 2 days. I hope you saw the program yesterday, and that when the information comes up on your screen, you'll take note of that and get the fine book that he has written. Everyone should be concerned. Absolutely everyone should be concerned about what's going on in our public school system. So I'm anxious for you to see that conversation. And then I'm going to join Stephanie, and we are making a taco pot pie. I have a feeling that a lot of children would like this, and this would do your budget very nicely, be very kind to your budget. So we will try that out. Before I do, let me remind you, we are viewer supported, and the information on the screen will tell you how that happens. If you use debit card, credit card, you call the toll-free number 1-800-229-0059, or if you'd like to send a check, just write to us, make it out to Homekeepers, Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida, 33758. And I say this with my heartfelt thanks. I appreciate it so much. And now I've joined my good friend Stephanie over here.
Yes, ma'am.
And is this a recipe your family would like, do you think?
Almost definitely.
Yeah?
And I love it because it's frugal.
Mm-hmm.
I love a frugal dinner that's filling and delicious.
Is frugal a nicer word than cheap?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, she has amazed us with some of her
cheapness.
Yeah, your cheapness. Boy, in this day and age, and I got to say this, I can't tell you how much I admire how you've taken this family debt, tackled it, and she's winning. And like I said, very soon we're going to sit down and do a program on this, and because many of you have written and says, what does she do? So we will do that, so keep watching. Okay. This is a pound of ground beef.
Right, with a medium onion.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And we're just taking a jar of taco sauce and putting that in, getting it mixed up.
That beef's making it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then you have a cup of Bisquick or any kind of baking mix. And you have an egg and a half a cup of milk if you just want to mix all those together. Okay. This is so super simple. You could make this ahead of time, and then all you have to do is stick it in the oven. I want something frugal, and I want it to be easy.
Well, and like I've always felt since Stephanie's been here that she really represents a large group out there, and I'm hopeful that her example will help you.
Well, it's funny because there's a couple of guys downstairs here now who have just really discovered couponing, and they're so excited.
Some guys?
Yes, they're so excited. It's hysterical. So
will they come on the show?
I don't know. I've been talking.
Are you going to give any names? Or
no, I won't give any names right now. But they're excited, and I've been sending them emails and sending them, websites and everything. So it's pretty fun.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
when a guy gets into it. I did see a guy on TV who was into it once.
Yeah.
Oh, and he was going around with his little basket and.
Yeah. Well, these two are.
In fact, he was so
excited.
into it. If I'd have been his wife, I might have been a little bit. Come on now, you know what I'm saying.
Okay, so we're just going to take the ground beef and the taco sauce. You sprayed the pan, so we're just going to put that in.
And if you don't like if you don't like the taste of tacos, there's probably all kinds of different ideas you
Oh,
could
sure,
do
you could do this
to
with barbecue
flavor it.
sauce. And then we're just going to put the cheese over.
This is really hot. But look how nice that bakes on the top.
Isn't that nice? You could also, you know, cut up some lettuce and tomato on the side,
Yeah.
just like a taco.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to pour
And
this
you would
right
have your
over the top.
taco. Now this is really, really, truly hot. I'm so curious to know who the guys are.
Well, I'll tell you.
But they're incognito, right?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you when we're off there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're excited, though, let me tell you. They are, like, full force, ready to coupon.
I
It's
think that is
hysterical.
so cool.
Yeah.
And I hope their wives join them in the...
They're getting there, yes.
Because that's the key. If you and your husband hadn't been together on this, it would have been...
It would have been harder. I still would have done it. I mean, there's, you know, you can still do it.
Oh, boy.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm. It is very good. One dish. And like she said, add the lettuce and tomatoes. There's your taco. And you didn't have to do all the little frying up stuff, you know, the tortillas and all. Okay, that information is coming up on your screen. And I mean the information for this recipe because I want to get right to this interview with Mr. Wick. I feel it's one of the most important we've ever had on Homekeepers. So pay attention to the recipe information and then you'll hear the interview.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, please send your request along with a gift of $5 or more to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758.
Well, I'm really continuing a conversation with Mr. Jeffrey Wick, who is the author of Public Education, and so fits our program, so I wanted a little more time with him. And on the last program, we talked about just kind of some general things, but I think I'd like to get to the nuts and the bolts of how to really change things. And so I want to bring up to you, Jeffrey, the parents. I have a son-in-law who's a public school teacher, and I consider him, he's the most wonderful man. I consider him a missionary. And he does have the fruit of the Holy Spirit and that kindness and gentleness, which a lot of these kids need.
That's true.
But to try to get a parent to a teacher-parent meeting, it's kind of like looking for hen's teeth, I think.
Well, turnout is usually low, and I think part
of
that...
Is that an understatement?
That's an understatement, yeah. Yes, it is, and I think part of that comes from the dependent mentality. You know, and in my book I discuss how over time, over decades, the school system has assumed more authority, sometimes trying to be benevolent, sometimes trying to help out. But as a school assumed more, the parents gave less. So the schools are saying, okay, now we're going to offer this service, and parents are saying, well, the school's going to take care of my child. And over time, the school becomes dominant and kind of replaces the parent, and the parent's saying, here, the school will take care of my child. I'm just going to back out and turn it over.
Yeah, they compartmentalize. Okay, I have the kid at home, but you have the kid at school, and that's your problem.
Right, and I think over time, over that 40 years or 50 years, as that dependent mentality sets in, you can't get rid of it. So you have a child who started school at age 5 or earlier, graduates at 17 or 18, maybe goes to college till 21. So for 16 years or more, they've been indoctrinated that the school will take care of me. So they transfer that to the government. So the dependency grows through time, with the public school system being part of the reason for that. Not the only reason, but part of it.
Well, there's a saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
True.
If parents banded together and said, we don't like this going on in the school, how much influence would that have?
Probably depends on the community you're in. I mean, it would take a lot of people to stand up and say enough's enough. I want to teach creation in my child's school. I don't want evolution being emphasized, or environmentalism, or moral relativism, or sex education, or whatever the issue is. I think parents have to jump in and take charge. And I hear a story, well, I see it in my own school. You know, we teach what's called family life at the elementary level, which is pretty basic. But parents can opt out of that if they don't like it. So out of 350 kids, I might have 4 or 5 who opt out.
Why would they opt out?
Because they disagree with, you know, what's necessarily being taught to the kids in there. You know, maybe the sex ed part goes a little bit too far. In my school, we're pretty conservative. We don't go over the top. But some schools, they don't hold back. I mean, they're going all out with the homosexuality and the promiscuity and all that stuff, the abortion, everything. And I had a guy tell me in his school, his daughter was a teenager, and out of 2,000 students, he's the only one who opted his child out. And now he's saying in California, you can't even do that anymore. The school insists that the children participate in that type of instruction.
How much power does a principal have, like yourself?
Depends on the issue. You know, some of the stuff is state mandated. We teach family life because we have to. Now there's some flexibility. We can pick certain parts we want to teach and leave certain parts out. So it just depends on the issue.
Oh, okay, and what about teachers that might be mandated to teach something that's, I mean, I do consider our Christian teachers in our public schools, and I know they're not all the same, but I know some of the, in the inner cities and so forth, some of the teachers, it's survival.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of education that goes on, and I've just heard a lot, you know, really firsthand.
Right, and there's not a lot of flexibility. Usually there's a state mandated curriculum that those teachers are teaching, and they must follow
I think
that.
I'm the kind that would tweak it a little bit.
Tweak it a little bit, and you can, like just so you don't take too much time tweaking it, because you got to get a certain curriculum in, because then there's testing at the end of the year. So you got to be careful. But you know, for me, when I taught U.S. history, I taught our Christian history when it was applicable. You know, if I talked about the Mayflower Compact, for example, the curriculum stated in the textbook that it was basically set up basic government and majority rule. That's it. It doesn't mention the quotes about dedicating their colony to Christ and to God.
But you
I
put
that in because it's part of history. You know, I didn't spend a day on it, but I made sure that my students knew what was in that Mayflower Compact. So that's revisionism history.
I think I just had a twinge of discouragement because I talked about the principal, the teachers, and the parents, and I don't see a lot of power in any of those entities.
Well, there's not a lot of power, and I think when states sign on to the Common Core, like we talked about before, you lose even more control to the federal government. Because once the federal government starts writing the social studies curriculum, it's going to start with math and reading. I'll guarantee you that will expand to social studies and science. They're going to put in American history, whatever they want. And unless you're someone who studies independently and whatnot as a teacher, you're not going to be able to add in, because a lot of the kids coming out of colleges aren't getting it.
Well, I've heard a lot of them leave high school that can't really read an employment application.
Well, you definitely have some of that. I mean, there's some students who put in very minimal effort and whatnot, and the math skills are low for some kids. I mean, there's some good achievement. There's some kids working hard, and they're doing some good things. But
do you know what I've noticed when I go through the newspaper and they have all the valedictorians and the salutatorians and so forth? A lot of them are Asian young people, and they seem to value education.
And to me, that
I think a little bit more than, probably quite a bit more than the average American. That comes from the home.
And to me, I think that comes back down to the discipline and the structure. Here's the expectation. Truly high expectations.
Yeah.
That's another thing we need to get back to. We talk about it, but I don't think we implement it at all. We always make excuses because we want the child to feel good and to be comfortable and all those things. But if you go to Asian cultures and even some European cultures, here's the deal. You're gonna reach this or not. We're not going to hold your hand and babysit you, and you're going to dedicate yourself to academics. And that's probably why you see that. Those households are dedicated in
I
those
remember
cultures.
having a mother on who lived around here. She was from India, and her daughters were going to be doctors. That's just what it was. There was no TV in the house. There was that structure and all, and I have no doubt that those girls really achieved
because of that.
Probably in more than education.
Well, in this country, teachers will get upset, especially if they're in a union state, if the classroom sizes are too big. Well, I got 28 kids, that's too many, and they're hard to control, and I can't give them all this one-on-one attention and whatnot. But if you go to some Asian nations, I had a lady who cut my hair who was from South Korea. They had classrooms with 70 kids in it.
Really?
And one teacher.
One teacher.
And you could hear a pin drop. This is her telling me the story. You could hear a pin drop in there. Because
Wow.
the kids were focused, it was discipline and structure. There's no excuse. You're not going to go there and goof off. You're not going to have an excuse for failing. You're going to pay attention and get the work done.
Well, our schools and school districts, aren't they terrified of a lawsuit? I've observed the most foolish things because they were afraid of a lawsuit.
I don't know that as a principal of a school, I wouldn't say I'm terrified of a lawsuit. I'm just saying the philosophy
What about your
of
superintendent?
I wouldn't say so, but the philosophy has become
Right.
where if you're not making kids feel good, which is sometimes called effective learning, and you're not entertaining them, and you're not considering their unique difference or whatever the case may be, that you're not going to help that child. So a lot of people have bought in to this philosophy. It's not that they're afraid of a lawsuit. It's essentially they've bought into weakness. And
Oh, absolutely.
And again, I talk about in my book how weakness is promoted in the public school system. So the key is this philosophy, kick out that philosophy, go back to some of the things we talked about, and I think you can turn the system around.
Well, and also you have to change every single thing because one child is offended.
Exactly.
You know what my mother would have said to me about being offended? Get over it.
Deal with it.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm talking with Jeffrey Wick, and so qualified to really write this book. And let's get that website up, and we'll leave it up for the rest of our time together. You say that, many say that religion has been taken out of school, but you say it's promoted.
It is promoted because, again, the separation of church and state ideal, it's a fantasy. You cannot have it. They've taken out Christianity, but now they've inserted the other faith, which is, to me, environmentalism, relativism, and self. They raise up those three things. Moral relativism. Every behavior is equal to any other behavior, regardless of whether it's deviant. We don't hear that term anymore. So relativism, we talked about environmentalism a little bit. And self, you are the center of your own universe. God is not, you don't need God, all you need is you.
Can you sing Christmas carols in your school?
We do. Fortunately, I'm probably one of the small number of schools that do at our Christmas concert, which we still call Christmas. We still call it Christmas break where I am. But it's a mix. You know, we do maybe a Christmas carol, maybe a couple I'd say the secular ones outweigh in number the Christmas carols.
Yeah. Also, we're hearing a lot about really kind of encroachment of Islam in a lot of areas in the United States today, and all you have to do is look, I think, at Germany and London. It won't be too many decades before they are in the majority, because I believe Great Britain is at 0 population growth. And we're getting there, so I understand that now that it's 2 citizens who work for 1 Social Security check in this nation. That's scary, friends. That was really, really scary. And so it all goes down to abortion and not having larger families. Have you experienced anything with this Islam becoming pretty prominent?
No, not in my area. I mean, I don't see that. I'm in a pretty rural area, so we don't have a lot of pressure in that regard. However, what I've read recently is the textbooks that are coming out now are revising 9/11.
Oh,
Instead
you're
of
kidding.
saying, you know, terrorists attacked America, it's like stuff along the lines of misunderstood youth, and however they're twisting it. So I think if you have a parent in schools and they're in U.S. history class, I would look at that book and see what they're teaching about 9/11.
That's like the people who say there was no Holocaust.
Exactly. It's like we're afraid to offend anybody by telling the truth, but I mean, we just got to tell it the way it happened.
I agree with Franklin Graham. It wasn't Presbyterians who knocked those buildings down.
I agree with that as well. Absolutely not.
Okay, you say that the U.S. And ancient Israel have similar destinies.
I do.
Explain.
In my last chapter, it's entitled The Pending Judgment on America. That's not the exact title, but it's basically about America facing God's judgment. And I talk about how Israel started with 12 tribes, which received land, and then the Levites, which was 13. And then Jesus and 12 disciples was 13, and we started with 13 colonies. So I go through a number of parallels between the U.S. and ancient Israel. And Israel was God's chosen people and still is. It's his chosen land. And he had a covenant with them. And he blessed them. And then they revolted. and then they were punished. And I think America is God's second chosen nation, the purpose of which is to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world. And I believe he selected America for that purpose. We were founded as a Christian nation. There are hundreds of quotes from the founders showing that. And I think we're following that same track that Israel followed, from blessing to rebellion to eventual punishment. And as Israel was punished a couple thousand years ago, I think America is on the same precipice of looking at God's punishment unless we return to God's ways, to the Bible.
Interesting parallel. Well, a while ago I opined about the teachers, the parents, and principal. It just dawned on me, who could change it? It's the students.
That's a good point. The students could change it. I think it takes everybody, really.
Yeah, but I've always said peer pressure is just peer pressure.
True.
It can be good, it can be bad.
True.
What if we raised up from our churches strong, onward Christian soldier type of young people? They could change.
You raise a very good point, because at the reform school I worked at, which was a completely different environment, and the reason it was successful were some of the reasons I told you: structure and discipline, and giving those kids confidence that they could achieve. But a key premise of that system was peer pressure. The students who behaved properly, when new students came into the system, they modeled that to those other students. And if those students wanted to rebel, it was the other students who confronted them first. Like, you will not spit on the sidewalk, for example. And the peer pressure allowed that school, positive peer pressure allowed that school to succeed. Absolutely, you're right.
If churches would get this standard up, parents, Christian parents, and raise up young people who are not ashamed of the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ, not ashamed of it, there's nothing the school system can do to them.
You're correct. You're correct. And I think our prosperity as a nation kind of led to complacency, which allowed this evil socialistic bent to get in and kind of take over. You know, we kind of thought we all have our homes and our cars and we're living fine and we're healthy and we eat good and we have all these things. But underneath the surface, this dangerous ideology was taken over. And I think what you said there would go a long way to reversing
Yeah,
that.
that would be a major inroad.
Oh yeah,
right there.
absolutely.
And that's the kind of young people that we need to be raising up in our homes and in our churches.
Absolutely.
That they would take that message and not be intimidated.
And people have to realize when they go to the school, they're not getting the Christian message.
No.
They're not getting those values that they're getting at home. So you got to be ready to be aware of what's happening there so your child can be strong.
Well, they've got to raise them strong enough to withstand. And see, with kids, if it's the popular thing to be good and be a Christian, that's what they'll do.
That's true. Well, there was a time
They're
when
easily
I think
influenced.
Absolutely, very easily. And I think there was a time when the school's principles matched the family's principles.
Yeah.
A family could send their child to school and be comfortable. That's not the case anymore. If you're raising a Christian child and they're going to school, they're not getting anything. As a matter of fact,
And they're not getting any affirmation.
exactly, anything they're getting is criticizing the way they're being raised.
So we need to increase the numbers.
Absolutely.
That would work.
That would work.
Oh, I've loved talking to you.
Same here. It was a pleasure.
That is my heartbeat, because it's not rocket science.
No.
It really is. It's not difficult at all. That the Christian voice just needs to be a whole lot stronger, and don't back up.
Let's be confident and proclaim it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Excellent. Come and see me next time you're in Tampa Bay area.
I'd
okay?
love to.
And you stay with me. I have a couple things to say before we have to say goodbye.
Arthelene would like you to keep the following information handy. You may contact Homekeepers by writing P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, or go to www.rippy.org. Remember, we always enjoy hearing from our viewers, and we thank you for your support.
Friend, you have no idea how it delights me to bring such a guest to you as Jeffrey Wick. And I've got to tell you, it's the Lord himself who sends these guests to us. And the truth of the matter is, we are all workers together with Jesus Christ to get the word out. And so my little position here is just to facilitate a lot of these wonderful, wonderful people to you. And I certainly hope that this has opened your eyes. I hope you will not forget it. I hope you will remember, if you've got a prayer list, put your public school system on it and recognize that they are learning, that the young people are learning things that are absolutely, completely opposite to their Christian beliefs, and they are learning a history that's not true. And so if you have children in the public school, be on guard and let your voice be known. If you do not, just put that public school system on your prayer list. And one of the important things is to pray for their protection. We are living in such a violent time. I don't know, it kind of causes me to, wherever I go, to be a little bit more aware of what is around. And so pray for the protection of our students in the school. And remember, there are predators out there who like to hang around schools and all. Pray that God will keep these school systems free from sexual predators, and that it could be a place of true learning. It's sad how it has taken a nosedive. But don't forget, friend, greater is He who is in us than he who is in the world. And the important thing is that we do become concerned about it and do what we can do about it and give it a lot of prayer, that we can begin to raise up American young people to be what they're supposed to be within the will of God. Well, thank you so much for being with me. And I hope you took the information on the way you can get his book. I think it should belong in youth leaders' libraries, Sunday school, pastors, and your own. And join me next time, remembering no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you would like a video copy of today's Homekeepers program for just $19.95, call 1-800-229-0059 for credit card orders, or send a gift of at least $19.95 to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758. Be sure to note the program number which appears on your screen.